Hello. Right, it's been a while since I have done a channel. In fact, I haven't done much channeling the last 3 months, maybe. So I took a break, and then I did some channeling, and then I went away for 3 weeks and haven't channeled, so I came back and that was about another 3 weeks. So it's been a while. Anyway, I've been writing my book, and most of my time and my being creatively expressive, my spirituality has gone into my book, so that's why I haven't been channeling as much. But I've reached the stage in the book where I don't know the answers, so I need to get some new information. So there's some questions I have here. So the one I'm going to ask today is, how is the sun involved in our ascension? How is the sun involved in our ascension? And by that I mean, is it going to do something which will be a sort of mechanical component of the ascension, and also is it itself ascending in some way? So that's what we got. Probably a little bit rusty because it has been a while. Well, let's see. Water. Alright, here we go. Greetings and thank you for the question. How is the sun involved in the Earth human's ascension? And specifically, you wish to know, how is the sun involved mechanically, and how is the sun involved spiritually? Let us start by saying there is nothing within existence that is not involved in your ascension. And this is an important distinction because it reinforces the concept that everything is the one thing. It is all a massive interconnecting lattice of the one thing. And so while this region of the one thing will be going through a spiritual evolution, this is a spiritual evolution of the one, not only exclusively of this region. So we begin with this clarification because, as you can see, then the answer to your original question is yes. The sun is involved in your ascension, and its involvement is a spiritual one. However, that is a default answer. That is a default perspective. That is the perspective of the whole. We understand that you are inquiring more specifically, and that your inquiry wishes to ascertain, is the Son itself going to pass through a spiritual evolution? So, whose ascension is it anyway? This is the essence of what you ask. The earth human is going to ascend. Those that are vibratorily compatible with ascension at the time of the ascending event will ascend. However, the Earth's ascension will, in a sense, be a domino that falls. It is not the Earth human's ascension, as in the exclusive event of the Earth human, but rather the Earth human has been gathered up in the ascension of yet a larger body, of a more expanded expression of itself, meaning a larger group being within which the earth human finds itself is the one which is ultimately at the centre of this ascension. It is this being which shall ascend, and caught in its ascension, drawn up in its ascension, will be all of those aspects of itself which comprise the group being that it is. And this group being is the solar system being. The solar system being, ultimately, is what shall ascend. And consequential to its ascension will be the ascension of the earth and the ascension of the earth human species, which is the earth. It is the earth's sentience. And it will be the activation of the earth human as the earth's sentience. Because, still at this moment, the earth human does not realize that it is the earth. It does not realize that it is intended, it is destined to become the sentience of the earth. The earth has across its surface many organisms, and all of these organisms primarily operate on innate patterning, innate behaviour. They are, in a very literal sense, the earth expressing itself through the organisms that live upon its surface. However, the earth human is unique in that it is an extension of the earth being. It is the earth being. However, it has reached a place of sovereignty, of intellectual independence, where it now has free will and it has an exclusivity in what choices that it makes in regard to what the earth is trying to achieve. So now there is the possibility that there is something within the earth, something which is part of the earth, which has the capacity to behave in a way which is counter, which is not conducive to the goal of the earth. So there is this situation where there is a conflict within the earth itself, because its sentience is not complying with its intention. However, this is not a sign of sickness, this is not a sign of dysfunction, but really it is artifact of the way in which the earth has been created. And when we say the earth has been created, we also mean the human species upon the earth's surface. The earth human is unique in that it has been created with the capacity for spiritual dichotomy. And so it can be of the light and of the darkness simultaneously. Because the default mechanism through which most species are created in their very first moment is to be born in full appreciation and integration into the awareness that they are the light. And so they do not need to pass through an era of discovering they are not the darkness. And because of this unique dichotomous presentation of the earth human, then it manifests in many ways, including being part of the earth being, yet without realizing it is part of the earth being, and consequential to that, behaving in ways which are antithetical to what is best for the earth being. However, the extrapolation from this understanding, which is commonly taken on your planet, is that, and when we say extrapolation of this understanding, we're not talking about the understanding of the dichotomy, the spiritual dichotomy of the earth human being and its connection to the earth, not to this degree of granular specificity. But the awareness on the earth at your time is that the earth human behaves in a way which is not healthy for the earth in many aspects. And so the extrapolation from this understanding is that the earth human is a virus, is some type of blight upon the earth's surface, and the earth, for its sake, will eradicate the earth human. Or some select humans upon the earth who have placed themselves through wealth, power, authority into a state of elitism, where they will take it upon themselves to rid the planet of most of humanity, in the belief that it is a cleansing for the earth. It is best for the earth. And of course, through the megalomaniacal greed and God complex, they feel entitled to do this because it is best for them as well, and they are more deserved of the fruits and treasures of the earth than the rest of humanity. And this is a paradigm which is coming to a close. And as it comes to a close, and the earth human increasingly awakens to his true nature, what will become apparent is this realization that the earth human is in fact component of the earth organism, and its role is as the sentience of the earth being, the grey matter, in a sense. And when this fully awakened state is achieved, the earth will have upon its surface billions of awakened aspects of itself with the capacity to move with free will and independence, extending beyond the innate, basic, primitive nature to be a form of genius of the earth, to guardianship over the earth, to heal the earth, to protect the earth, to promote the abundance of the earth. So, clearly, this scenario where the earth is covered in its own awakened sentience is a very favourable outcome for the earth itself. And so the earth is not of the inclination that the earth human must be cleansed for its own saviour, but rather it is of the inclination that the earth human must be awakened to the realization that it is the earth, so that the earth shall become more pristine and ultimately more expanded into the ultimate definition of what it shall eventually become. This is an incremental shift towards this final destiny of the earth. An analogy which we will share with you will bring yet more light to this concept we are sharing right now. In nature, upon earth, the flower chooses to spread its genetic code across nature. And so when the time is right, it will open its blossom and its pollen shall be distributed across nature as far as is capable, and its genetic code shall be spread. And this is at the basis of the continuation and flourishment of the incredible diversity of life on this planet. Similarly, the earth, in the ultimate extrapolation of this model, in the most expanded fractal of this pattern, spreading the pollen, the genetic code throughout nature, throughout the area to which it has access, is that eventually the pollen of the earth shall be you, the human being. When the earth ripens and matures and blossoms, and this will be indicated by being covered its entire surface with a fully awakened sentience at this time. This fully awakened sentience will be space capable and spread throughout the cosmos, just like the pollen of the flower. And the earth shall spread its genetic code as far as the fates will take it. This will be the earth germinating across the cosmos, just has occurred for countless planets throughout this galaxy and others. It is the model of nature on a galactic scale. If the earth human is eradicated, then in a sense, the earth shall become barren of this interstellar pollen which the earth human is. So, be very aware that the earth loves you dearly. The earth treasures you because you are destined to become, your descendants are destined to become the pollen of earth, and you shall be the vehicle which spreads its genetic code once it blossoms. Just as humanity is part of the earth being is part of the solar system being. And going back to the intent of this question, let's now discuss the solar system's participation in this ascension. The solar system being, is the sun, all of the planets which orbit it, and all of the organic life which inhabits each of the planets, all of the life forms which inhabit those planets orbiting the central star. This is the solar system being. And the solar system being is on the verge of ascending. And when it ascends, it will be in a musical sense, a shift to a higher harmonic. So, if you can imagine that the planets rotating, orbiting around the sun are creating a symphony of resonance, and when the ascension occurs, the earth being and the earth humanity, the beings on the surface of the earth that make up the earth organism, they shall begin to resonate at a higher frequency. And the tone of the entire solar system will shift. And this shift in tone, this shift in harmonic of the entire solar system, resulting from the change in tone of the earth, will be an ascension in the vibration of the entire solar system being. However, now we are getting to the information that you were struggling to grasp when you were writing. Just as the earth to ascend requires the earth humanity, its sentience, to also ascend, to be bundled in the ascension event. For the sun to fully ascend, it requires all of the sentient organisms within itself to ascend. And sentience here is used to mean on a planetary scale. And so, within the sun's ascension, there is an octave. So there is the sun, and then there is the 8 planets. And so, as each of these planets over time go through their own shift in energy, a transformation, then the sun, the solar system being, will shift up one increment within the octave. Until eventually, when all planets within its beingness have shifted one increment, have shifted themselves, thereby shifting the solar system being one additional increment within the octave. When the final octave is completed through the ascension, or the transformation, the shift in the final planet, then the sun itself shall have completed the transition. The solar system being will have completed the transition through the complete octave. And then, in a sense, will shift to the next octave, which is synonymous from the perspective of what is possible for a solar system being to be an ascension. The Earth's ascension with the Earth human will be a shift of one increment within the octave, but it will not be the completion of the entire octave. So, it is ultimately the sun continuing to be ratcheted up towards its final increment of the octave, so that it then transitions to a next dimensional state. So it is not the completion of, but increment of. And when this final stage is reached, when the final increment is achieved, and the sun does transcend the octave into the next octave, the sun itself will be dramatically transformed. And the conditions for life on the planets within the solar system will also be dramatically transformed. This is something which is far off into the future, using the perspective of linear time. So, let us simplify what has been said. the earth being will ascend. And included in this will be the ascension of the earth human. And these two will be part of the sun ascending by one increment within its octave. On its ratcheting up to the full transition into the next octave, which will be manifest as a complete change in the permanent nature of the sun. Okay. Now let's discuss how the sun shall be involved mechanically in the earth and earth-human ascension. Perhaps before we go there, let's clarify also this concept of the earth ascending. Typically, solar systems and planets do not ascend. However, part of the unique design that was incorporated into the solar system being, the system of which you find yourselves, was this unique and unprecedented capacity for an entire solar system to ascend. And component to that being the ascension of planets. It is a completely new paradigm of creation. So, right now, in the current time you are experiencing, it is several billions years into these experimental conditions. And from the beginning until now, it has been a very unique opportunity to observe what has not been observed before. Because the effect of creating this system has been extensive and expressed and manifest in ways which were completely unexpected. So, the Earth is going to ascend. And incorporated into that will be the ascension of the Earth human. So, let's now return to how is the sun going to be mechanically involved in the ascension of the Earth and the Earth human. The role of the sun in regard to the ascension of the Earth and the Earth human is to, over time, provide a quality of energy to the planets, including the Earth, which increases in intensity over time. So it becomes more intense, more radiant, more intensely energetic, and this changing energy over time also has a transformative effect on the earth human. Until eventually there is a gradual transition into the fifth dimensional state. However, this experiment, as we have discussed before, was intercepted by opportunists who saw this state of awakening sentience that had no idea they were the light. And so, being in an empty vessel, they had a massive potential to embody the darkness because they did not realize they were the light. And these dark beings, for them, it was an incredible opportunity to spread their darkness and create a global scenario that was dominated by darkness, and as such was a massive resource to harvest the darkness which they themselves had created through the ways in which they diabolically manipulated the conditions of the planet, of its inhabitants, of the minds and the wills and the division and so on. So the consequence of this interruption by the opportunists is that the natural progression of the earth human to a transition into an awakened state as the fifth dimensional being has been dramatically stifled. In effect, a lid has been put on. And so it has been a pressure cooker where the energy has been slowly seeping in, but expansion has been unable to occur. So, now a point has been reached where there is a precipice of awakening which has been approached. And instead of this slow transition to the place in time where humans find themselves now, manifesting as a mostly benevolent, awakened species that are primarily, and yet not totally, understanding of themselves as the light, which is the marker for ascension, which is the completion of the third dimensional purpose. Instead, what has occurred is this timeline, which was originally intended for the ascension, and the sun itself has been calibrated to this, so that it is pouring in a type of sun, a type of energy, which is intended, which is of a quality that should have transformed the earth human. So the earth human will ascend not by a giant leap, but by a final stepping over the finish line after a long period of transition and transformation from third to fifth dimensional. Yet because the opportunists had interrupted the system and filled the earth and the earth human field with darkness, then this gradual transition has not occurred. And so the energy of the sun at the center of the solar system being has been given but not utilized. So in a sense, there is a build-up of this energy. There is a massive reservoir of dammed energy. And we mean dammed as in a dam wall. Yet, this energy is available to transform, and the Earth human has reached a point where the original timeline was the time for transformation. So the Earth has not been interrupted by the opportunists, because the opportunists do not have the capacity to actually interrupt the spirituality of the entire planet. So, now we have this miscalibration, where instead of the Earth being and its sentiency, Earth human, being perfectly calibrated to ascend simultaneously as a single organism, we have the situation where the Earth being is very far down the path of ascension. However, the Earth human, having been stifled by the opportunists, are way back, lagging behind. And the energy which has been available to the Earth human for this gradual transformation towards this place of stepping over the line of ascension is there, but unutilized. So the sun will, when the time is right, release this energy, which was intended to be released over thousands of years, over a period of less than a day. It will be a full coronal mass ejection, unprecedented in the context of this solar system being. And this flood of energy released from the sun will be initiated by the Earth human rapidly closing the gap between its place of readiness, between itself and the Earth. The Earth is ready, the Earth is primed to ascend. Humanity is lagging, however. Much to the amazement of all those that observe, humanity is now rapidly making ground, closing this gap. There is an unexpected organic explosion of the light, as if the light knows. It is with great wonderment that the cosmos is witnessing what is occurring here, because it appears, just as nature finds a way within the context of how humans understand nature, there is this belief, this recognition, nature always finds a way. Well, we, observing what is occurring here, we are coming to the realization the light always finds a way. And so the Earth human is exploding in their awakening, closing this gap to bring itself and the Earth human into calibration, bring itself and the Earth being into calibration, so that there can be a simultaneous ascension. And this closing of the gap, this awakening to itself as the light, the Earth human species, the humanity being, having this realization in a mass simultaneity, will begin the countdown to the Earth's ascension. It will initiate the Earth to begin its ascension. So it will be catalyst. The Earth human species, the Earth humanity being, going through this rush of mass awakening to the realization that it is the light, that it is not the darkness. This will be catalytic to the Earth initiating its own ascension. And these two events combined will release a surge of energy which will incite the sun to release. It will be the trigger for the sun to release the energy it has been holding with the intent to give to the earth human as the fuel to transition its transformation into the fifth dimensional state. It will give that energy in a very short period, rather than the thousands of years that were initially intended. And at this point, it is still relatively unknown what shall occur. Within the context of what has been observed through linear time. However, the supposition is, because there are many timelines, and there are those with the capacity for time travel, forwards and backwards, who have witnessed what will occur and have given details on what will occur, but the details given are not always the same, because there are multiple timelines, multiple futures. But the supposition that those who are on planet Earth will experience this timeline in this way. When there is the mass awakening and the humanity being begins to awaken, is on the verge of awakening. However, the humanity being cannot fully awaken within the third dimension. It must pass into the fifth dimension. The humanity species passes into the fifth dimension. That will be the awakening of the humanity being. And so, the revelation of the third dimension is, I am not the darkness, I am the light. And so, reduced to its most fundamental, simplistic, I am the light. However, the I is not the individual, but rather it is the humanity being, the combined being, the group being, the one being which includes the entire species. I am the light. This will be the humanity being. And this awakening will reach a point of singularity where it is almost completely, totally fulfilled. And yet, it cannot, because it is not a state which is capable to entirety within the third dimension. So it necessitates, for the singularity to be reached, that there is a transition into the fifth dimensional, where the capacity to touch the singularity, to reach completion of this understanding that you are completely the light, must occur. It must be a shift into the fifth dimension for this to be complete. And this approaching so close to the point of the singularity, where it cannot be touched until it passes to the fifth, this is a massive concentration of energy. And that is why, when this occurs, it will be the catalyst for the entire Ascension event, triggering the sun to release the energy. Now, when the sun releases the energy, what shall occur is it will a full mass coronal ejection. And this ejection will irradiate the entire body of the solar system being, including the Earth. From the observer's lens, using the context of human understanding, this would be observed as a mass extinction event. When there is a death of the Earth human leaves the body, returns to the light, goes through a process of reflection and analysis of the life just lived to extract the new experiential understanding of self, which is added to the totality of the one's experiential understanding of itself. And then when it is beneficial, as decided by this consciousness, it will re-enter physicality, reborn into a new life, which holds all of the potential for it to most expediently know itself experientially in the ways it understands it still lacks based on the analysis of the previous life and lives all living simultaneously. However, this ascension event, there will be a death of the 3D body, of the physical body. However, at this time, those who have awakened to themselves as the light, although not totally, because it is not possible within the third dimension, you cannot touch the singularity from the 3D. This concept of knowing thyself as the light to completion, where you have touched the singularity, is only possible within the 5D. However, it is a spectrum. And so while you are 3D, as you become more extra-dimensional, as you become more expressive of self, which isn't the avatar, it is a transition into more of your fifth dimensionality. And so, by the time humanity has reached this place where they are so close to touching the singularity, they are so realized of themselves as the light, but they can almost touch it, but they can't because they are trapped within the limitations of the 3D. At this point, they are so fifth dimensional in their composition. If we remember there is a spectrum, then at this point they are primarily fifth dimensional beings, and yet a little bit of them is 3D. And that part of them that is 3D is the physical avatar. Because no longer do they exist just as this limited physical avatar, but they are now living mostly as the extra-dimensional, fifth-dimensional being which they are destined to fully become. So, when the mass coronal ejection occurs and the body is burnt away, instead of being reclaimed by the light to go back into this place of reflection, awaiting to be reborn, which is the normal process, instead what will occur is there will be a transition into fifth dimensionality, because the third D body will be burnt away, but the 5D body will not. The rainbow body, it is often called, will not be destroyed by the mass coronal injection. Instead, it will be awakened, it will be empowered, it will be charged up by this solar flash. And this will push those that are ready, that are energetically primed, that are above the threshold, that have compatibility with this process because of their energetic state. Nothing to do with judging as good or bad. There is nobody making the decision, you're worthy, you are not. It is not that at all. It is completely metaphysics. It is the science of it. And this is why it is so important for you to purge your darkness and polarize to the light, become more and more expressive of the light, to be the light. Because this is the literal preparation to be included in the Ascension. And so, for those that are in this state where they are primed for the Ascension, because they vibrate at a level above the threshold, because they have purged sufficiently of their darkness, they will not be recycled back into 3D. They will instead be pushed, portaled, phased out of 3D into 5D, and shall begin living a completely new human species paradigm on planet Earth as the awakened humanity being, the unity, the one thing of many parts. And what shall be incredibly unique about the Earth human beyond this ascension into 5D is that the Earth human will be one of very few examples within all of existence of a species of beings completely awakened of themselves to the light that were not born in that state. They were not created in that state. So the very first breath was already within a state of awareness that I am the light, which is the default way in which life is brought into existence. The Earth is unique. The Earth experiment is unique. The Earth human species is unique. The solar system being is unique. And so, even though the journey has been very long, very painful, very steeped in darkness and suffering, the fruit that it shall bear, the gem that has been mined from the very depths of hell, will be a radiant beacon of the power and success of the One. And the Earth human itself, the Earth humanity being, will be a source of unprecedented wisdom, because it shall be of the light, yet also understanding of what it means to be of the darkness. And so this will give the Earth human an experiential appreciation of the light, which is a very unique state, and gives access to a very deep, profound, and unknown quality of wisdom. So the Earth human is destined to become teachers, to become tutors, to share with other regions of the cosmos of the deep and profound understandings that were drawn from emerging into light from the depths of darkness. So, we shall leave it there. We thank you. We are very pleased that you came back to do a channeling session after your breakaway. We enjoyed it very much. We have much more to tell you if you just ask. We're always here. We're always with you. We love you. We are excited for you. And we thank you.